Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 94 in the book of Genesis. Now, no righteous people are going to be harmed in the making of this podcast because the lesson today is no righteous people will be harmed in the destruction of the city of Sodom. This is a crazy story where Abraham is going to intervene for the people of Sodom. This is from Genesis chapter 18. Let's read the passage first. 18:22. So the men, these are actually two angels, so the men returned from there and went toward Sodom. But Abraham stood before the Lord. Abraham drew near to God and said, "Will you indeed sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city. Will you then sweep away the place and not spare it for the 50 righteous people who are in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to put the righteous to death with the wicked, so that the righteous fare as the wicked. Far be that from you. Shall not the judge of all the earth do what is just?" It's a great question. And the Lord said, "If I find at Sodom 50 righteous in the city, I will spare the whole place for their sake." Verse 27, Abraham answered and said, "Behold, I have undertaken to speak with the Lord, but who am I but dust and ashes?" So Abraham comes humbly. Verse 28, "Suppose 5 of the 50 righteous are lacking. Will you destroy the whole city for lack of 5? And he said, "I will not destroy it if I find 45 there." And again he spoke to them and said, "Suppose 40 are found there." He answered, "For the sake of the 40 I will not do it." Then he said, "Oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Suppose there are 30 found there." And he answered, "I will not do it if I find 30 there." And he said, "Behold, I have undertaken to speak to the Lord. Suppose there are 20 there." He answered, "For the sake of the 20 I will not destroy it." Then he said, "O Lord, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak again, but this once. Suppose 10 are found there." He answered, "For the sake of the 10 I will not destroy it." And the Lord went his way, and when he had finished speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. So just a couple of big points here. God demonstrates his thoroughness in assessment. So in the verses before this, he says, "I'm going to go down to Sodom, I'm going to see, and I'm going to know." Secondly, he demonstrates a thorough judgment, like there's nothing hidden here from the Lord. Thirdly, God demonstrates his eye towards mercy. It's interesting that the story isn't that, hey, if there's one unrighteous person, I'm killing them all. It's not that. It's sort of the opposite. It's flipped. If there's 10 and then 45 and then 40 and 30 and 20 and 10 righteous people, I'm going to spare all the unrighteous people of the probably thousands that are in the city. So God has demonstrated his eye, his intent, his purpose is bent towards mercy. Now God is going to see the righteous, but the question is, are there any righteous in Sodom? And I think the short answer is no. There are no righteous people in Sodom. Well, let's back the bus up. Let's talk about it. Well, Abraham, is there righteousness inherent righteousness in Abraham? No, there's not. He messes up himself. How about Sarah? Nope. Is Hagar a perfectly righteous person, even though she's been one of my favorites so far in the New Testament? Nope. How about Adam, Eve, Abel, Cain? No. All these people have clear and demonstrable faults. And this is no surprise to anybody who's read the New Testament, because in Romans 3, all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. 3:11 says, none is righteous, no, not one. No one seeks for God. All have turned aside, and together they have become worthless. No one does good, not even one. So very, very sobering. So how about the righteous Lot? Is Lot, who eventually gets saved from Sodom, is he righteous? We find out very quickly that he is not. Or how about his daughters? Nor are they. So the bottom line question is, does anybody make it to heaven by self-righteousness, by being good enough? The answer clearly is no. Or do we need the help of God? Do we need somebody to put the thumb on the scales of justice for us, which is Jesus? 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 21 says, for our sake, he, the Father, made him, the Son, to be sin who knew no sin. So Jesus knew no sin, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. So we sort of hide behind his righteousness, and it's in him that we become righteous. So sometimes the righteous do fare as the unrighteous here. But in Sodom, there's none that are righteous. All right, let's talk about Abraham and the Lord. So Abraham stood still before the Lord. He says, I'm just dust, I'm ashes. And he asks, will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? And Abraham stands before the Lord in intercession. And this is exactly how Abraham supposes that he might be a blessing to the world. So is Abraham a blessing to the world by intercession? I think that's part of it, but the big way is through his family. You got to get to Jesus. You got to get to the righteous King that sits on the throne forever. So let's talk about this intercession. It comes at a time when Abraham stood before the Lord and he draws near to the Lord. And I don't think it specifically means a postural or a verbal thing. You know, you could potentially go to church for 2 hours and never stand before the Lord with this intentional, humble, postural, positional way in your heart. And people are designed to intercede for other people, which is really cool. So Abraham wants it and desires it, and God has designed this mechanism. So we should, if you are not interceding for people, I think clearly this passage tells you should be interceding. And obviously it should be done humbly and with historical knowledge of what the Lord is all about, biblical knowledge. And I think it's fair to remind the Lord of what he is like. And in doing so, we remind ourselves of what he said about himself. So it should be done with the confidence in God's power and his justice. So in conclusion, there's no righteous people are going to be harmed in the destruction of Sodom. Only the guilty are punished. 100% of them are punished unless they get the help of God. 2 Corinthians 5 again. For our sake he made him to be sin who knew no sin, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. In him we become righteous, and it's in him that we eventually become not harmed. So no people are going to be harmed today in the making of this podcast. Thanks for listening.